Hey podcasters, I just wanted to take this opportunity. This is our promo before our main show. I just want to make sure that you are part of our amazing Facebook community. It is for active creative entrepreneurs and professional business owners from around the globe. It is not one of those spammy, it's all about me type of sales groups. This Facebook group, I actually created it to help build relationships, strong relationships and conversations. But more importantly, you can also plug into some of our special events and get invitations. But it's just a great tool, and everyone comes from a place of value, which I absolutely love and endorse. So listen, guys, if you're not already part of our Facebook community, make sure that you go to www.facebook.com. /groups/become a game changer. All right. I'll ask you for a few questions and make sure that you do that right now. Pause this audio. Okay. Go to the Facebook group and introduce yourself, and look forward to seeing you in there. Take care. Bye.
This is the Game Changers Experience. Deep dive conversations with leading business disruptors, Olympic athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and influencers from around the world. This show will teach you insights about the winning principles in mindset, productivity, marketing, branding, entrepreneurship, business strategy, and more. Hosted by Productivity Authority, business strategist, former elite athlete, author, and public speaker, Adam Strong.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Power Up Thursdays. Super excited about today because we're going to be talking about a subject that I am ultimately quite passionate about. Today's episode is all about getting in the zone. Now, most of you know, well, I'm anticipating most of you know that I used to be a former elite athlete. I used to study and train with Olympic athletes, and the current world and Olympic world champion, Farah, was my current training partner. And what we did is we mainly did distance running. So I suppose it is it's the highest part of an athlete for athletics and things like that. So, but today I really wanted to talk about how essentially you guys can learn what you guys can learn from elite athletes and essentially help you to get yourself into the zone where you can accomplish more, you can be more, and you can go more places. And so from experience, I really want to talk about how is it that I got into the zone. You can learn from Olympic athletes, more importantly, and how you can essentially take the skills that I'm going to teach you guys in today's episode and help you accomplish more in your business and also in your personal life. So what is the zone, just out of curiosity? So you're probably thinking, well, what is he talking about? What does the zone actually mean? Well, the zone is basically a state of mind. It is a state of supreme focus where you're ultimately so connected to the goal that you have in mind, or whatever it is that you want to accomplish. Now, and I want to give you a really good example here because I used to be a distance runner, and my main events were, I suppose, 10-mile, half marathon, cross-country running. Really enjoyed that. But there were things that I did prior to competition, as an example. And there were, I suppose, some habits or some routines that I did in order to really get into the zone. And you would have seen a lot of athletes practice this, especially if you're sports fans. Footballers, for example, when they get off the bus, they've got the headphones on, and even right up until the end of the match, right to the beginning of the match, they've got the headphones in because that's their way of getting focused and blocking out all the distractions. It's the same with a track athlete. If you look at a sprinter, for example, what a sprinter does is he's completely looking forward. He's completely focused on the finishing line. He's already encapsulating, he's already winning the race because he's already thinking and breaking down exactly what he needs to do at a particular time. And they're so focused on achieving because they are there in the present moment. And so it's exactly what happened to me in my routine. So, and I'm going to share some of the things that I did in my getting in the zone routine, but also more importantly, I'm going to give you a system, guys, about how you can effectively get into your zone, because being in the zone for each person is very different. So, and also to get into the zone requires, I suppose it requires a supreme, not just a supreme level of focus, but there are certain things that you need to put in place before you can effectively go into the zone, essentially. And obviously athletes are extremely good at that. So firstly, let's talk about things that affects our mindset, because there are so many things that affect our mindset, from negativity to fear to your environment to the associations that you hang around with. There are so many things right now that are effectively they're affecting your mindset. All right, and these things have to be dealt with before you even think about getting into the zone. So what Olympic athletes are particularly great at is they're particularly great at conditioning their mindset for success. And mindset is a completely different episode, but there is a little bit of a crossover between the mindset and also the zone. And one of the things that I found is, especially being an entrepreneur and a business owner, is ultimately you've got to find a passion that really brings the adrenaline out in you. It brings this, I suppose, this power, this excitement, this adrenaline. More importantly, you've got to find your passion. So if you're doing something right now, even if you're in a job, if you are doing a business that doesn't particularly make you happy, there's no way in a million years you will ever become fulfilled. You will never fulfill your potential. You will never ever get yourself into the zone, because you're disconnected with the present. You're not, it doesn't excite you in any way, shape or form. So you've got to find a passion. So I had a really interesting conversation with a lady actually this week. I'm not going to mention her, but she was I loved her energy, but she had so much going on, and one of the things that and I could really feel her passion for wanting to help people and that kind of stuff. But she just really was kind of in this, what I call no man's land. And we're going to talk about clarity on a different episode, but ultimately I want you to find your passions in life. Right? What are your passions? What are your interests? If you don't know what your passions or interests, that's what you've got to do. You've got to go back to that. Think about what you're passionate about. Good friend of mine, actually, and this is a true story, by the way. They were a couple, and they essentially lived in an apartment, which they were on low-paid jobs at the time. One of them had just lost their job and they were struggling to pay for their bills. Literally, they were sleeping on mattress. They were hardly eating. Literally, they were at the brink of going crazy, right? And you can imagine the pressure that you're under. But what they did is they decided to set up a business based on their passion, and their passion was fitness. So what they decided to do is they decided to essentially create a business which they can monetize in the digital world or the online space. They did some training. They leaned in. They started to become more focused, laser focused in essentially what they wanted to accomplish. And they started to get some success. And cut a long story short, within about 2 years, they became millionaires just because they wanted to focus on their passions. They were doing jobs that they weren't they didn't enjoy it. Even though they were low paid or whatever it is, but they did enjoy fitness. They enjoyed staying in. They loved helping people. They loved staying fit, staying slim. So that's a really good story to tell. So do your passion. One of the things that I would say from my perspective is you've got to have a clear intention about what is it that you actually want to accomplish in your business. All right. And I know that a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs, business owners, even people that are running what I call a side hustle or a side business. You've got to get an understanding of what is the intention. Okay. Get a very clear intention in your head about what is it exactly that you want to achieve. Because if you get that correct, then you can start to laser focus on essentially getting into that zone. Secondly, is don't fear pressure, because the only pressure that you are putting on is upon yourself. You've got to become what I call situational awareness. You probably have heard of that terminology, but to become aware of your strengths and your weaknesses, all right? Be aware of your environment and what is going to, I suppose, distract you from achieving your focus or achieving your goal. Because once you begin to get an understanding of that, you're then going to start to increase your confidence. And confidence is what you really need in order to, I suppose, overcome fear more than anything else. The third one is about what I call having grit. Because if you have grit, okay, now how can we define grit? Well, grit is basically a combination of mastering self-discipline, number one. It is also a combination of passion and commitment to a particular task, project, or burning desire, whatever it might be, okay, to essentially see it through. You basically, you develop resilience in face of adversity, right? And tenacity and determination to reach your goals. But more importantly is that you've got to believe in yourself. Now, the thing is that if you're listening to this podcast, right, is that I believe in you more than you believe in yourself. That's what happens for most people, is that if you don't believe in yourself that much, then how is it that you essentially going to be able to connect with other humans? Because if you can't believe it in yourself, then they're not going to believe in you. And again, there's going to be a disconnection between trust and credibility. Also, I want you to really think about this as well. Be addicted to improvement. So one of the things that I did, when I was an athlete, one of the things that I was so, I suppose, addicted to, right? I was so addicted to improving my times. Literally 10K running or 10-kilometer running for me, it was, I suppose, one of the holy grails to break in the 40-minute mark initially, right? So I was so focused on trying to improve, and then I started breaking it down. What is it that I needed to hit every mile or every half a mile? What sort of pace do I need to go through? I started to visualize, and here's a really good point, and we're going to do a much deeper session on this at another time, but and you've probably heard this from a lot of the gurus, especially in the sports world, and a lot of successful business influencers of people that, like the people that I've interviewed, is that you've got to get visualized. You start to create visualizations of success. You start to create visualizations of, because it's in the pre-preparation that you do in your head. Because if you start to map out what it feels like, so in running, for example, in 10K running as an example, I started to really believe that I was actually there. I was actually winning the race, because one of the ways in which you can win, especially in business, is that if you start to visualize and you start to get a picture, a crystal clear picture of what it looks like, how does it feel, then you've already won, because your only competition really is you. Okay. And that's what you've really got to conquer. So that's really, really important. The next thing is be present, right? Maintain focus, which is under pressure. We're all under pressure, but really, if you want to, especially when there's so many, if you've got lots of projects going on, and if you've got, not just projects, but if you've got multiple different ideas going on in your head right now, be present. Okay. Because if you focus on one thing at a time, then you're going to go much faster and quicker, because otherwise all the other things become distractions. The next thing is learn from losing and also learn from winning, because now some of you may see failure, losing as failure and whatever it is. Okay. Now from a growth mindset, actually what I want you to do, guys, is I want you to think about, was there ever a time where things didn't quite work out the way they did, right? How did it make you feel? Did it make you feel disappointed? Did it make you feel not so good, or whatever it is? But the other question you have to ask yourself is, did I try my best? Okay. Did I go all in? Did I bring my A game? All right. And you start to analyze and you start to assess yourself. And one of the things that athletes are particularly good at, and this is something that I think would highly endorse you guys to do, is to self-evaluate yourself. Become aware of your strengths and weaknesses. What are the areas of your life that you could create that you're particularly great at? Because I always focus on my strengths and delegate my weaknesses. So that's a really good point. Okay. That's why I have a marketing team, and my marketing team do the stuff that I get them to do, stuff that I don't enjoy doing, because I focus on delivering great content like we're doing now, like we're enjoying ourselves here. And the last one, which I think is really important, is stop comparing yourself to other people. Now, athletes are particularly good at this. What they do is they focus on themselves. They focus on their own performance. They take their own responsibility, okay? Don't be sucked into the comparison trap, because especially if you're on social media a lot and you might sort of read some posts from other people, whatever it is, that they might have been featured here or done this or achieved that. And then you start to create those negative, I suppose, dialogues in your subconscious mind. What I would endorse you to do is don't always believe what you read, okay? That's the first thing. And secondly, comparing yourself to where other people are is only going to degrade your performance. I'll say that again. Comparing yourself to other people and where they're at is going to degrade your performance. So guys, I really want you to take these points on board more than anything else, because I really do believe that you can identify certain patterns and behaviors and habits, self-sabotaging habits, by becoming a little bit more aware. And another way that what you can do is you can actually keep a journal. You can keep a journal by writing out certain habits, behaviors, and how is it that you feel in certain times or whatever it is. And when you start to write down these things in your journal, you become more aware of how you can fix certain things, all right? Which I think is ultimately really, really important. And the last thing, which I think is probably one of the most important fundamentals about getting into the zone, is to challenge yourself. And I want to give a really good example here. So this year, I did something completely way out of my comfort zone, like way out of my comfort zone. We hosted a summit that some of you listeners already know about, which is called the Game Changer Summit. And the Game Changer Summit was a digital online summit, 30 of the world's leading industry authorities. Now, I had no clue about how to run a summit. I had no clue about how it would work out. I had no clue about systems and processes and streamlining to make it more efficient. I didn't know how I was going to reach people. I had so many unanswered questions about if I felt that, if it was going to work or not. All right. Now, there wasn't one time in my head that I said to myself, this is going to fail. Not one time. Because my belief is that if I put all my heart and soul into something, and I was completely immersed into this summit that we created, because I was so focused on, I suppose, helping people, but more importantly, to inspire people so that they can take fast and effective action. I don't want people to become me. I want people to become themselves. And I think this is really, really important. I was so immersed into this project. Now, some people said to me, well, how is it that you did everything so perfect? Trust me, you don't see what you see behind the scenes. And but from what I can say to you guys is that I did my absolute hardest. I couldn't have done any better than I already did. And that goes to my team as well, because without a team, there's no way I would have been able to develop or deliver a successful online summit. It was the very first time that we did. We reached over 2,000 people. We impacted 2,000 lives, and we delivered some amazing content. It was absolutely insane. which we're actually thinking about relaunching, believe it or not, to reach out to the people that didn't actually listen to it in the first place. So if you're listening to this and you're interested in listening to 30 of the world's leading industry authorities, please drop me a personal message onto my email address, which you can click on below. But literally, this is what the zone feels like. And I want to describe another way that I get into the zone as well, especially when it comes to, so a lot of you guys know that I'm a speaker. I go around the world. Companies pay me large amounts of money, or if I go to an entrepreneurial event or whatever it might be, okay? And I love it. Literally, I love traveling. I love inspiring people. I love people. I love to really add value to people's lives. But one of the things that I do, and it's kind of a routine, right? And these are just some of the habits that I have developed over the years. I actually put on some trance music. I start jumping up and down, right? I start to get the energy, high energy flowing. And by the end of it, before I go on the stage, I'm sweating. It looks like I've had a full-blown workout, but I'm so pumped. And, I'm just so in the zone, right? And I'm so present. So I'm not saying that you need to do exactly the same when it comes to running your business, but you've really got to find a way in which gets you excited, right? And I hope that some of the tips, some of the insights, and some of the golden nuggets that I've shared with you about how you can potentially get into your zone, however that looks like, whatever that looks like, I hope that's really, really helped you. It certainly helped me over the years. And I hope that it's helped you too. So listen, guys, hope that you've enjoyed today's episode of Power Up Thursdays. Any questions or comments, feel free to leave any questions or comments on my social media, or alternatively, reach out to our team and we'll get back to you.
Hey, you guys, I just want to say
listen,
thank
have a fantastic
you so
day, week, month,
much
whenever you're listening
for
to this. Have a good one. Take care. See you soon.
Episode
Bye-bye.
of the Game Changers Experience. I hope that you got some amazing value, some great insights, and golden nuggets that you can implement into your business straight away. I would really, really appreciate it if you could leave a 5-star review on the button below. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.